Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storyist. Sometimes in life, we take a lot of things for granted, seeking for the better things we want, not realizing how much we already have. And more often than not, we will only realize the importance of a person, a thing, or a moment once it is already gone, and when everything is already too late. Today, I will be sharing with you a story about a grandmother who learns this very important lesson in life as she finds an old suitcase of her late husband. When she opens it, she is shocked to see what is inside. Stay until the end of the video to find out what is inside the suitcase and what happens to the grandmother. Isabel was a fine young lady during her younger years. In her 20s, she used to be the talk of the town. She was like the diamond of the season, capturing a whole decade, gracing everybody's eyes with her beauty. She grew up in a wealthy family, and inside a fancy home. She never experienced doing any chores, as she always had people to do everything for her, even picking out her outfit and putting on her shoes. There were also people assigned to fix her hair every time she would go to her school or when going out with friends. In general, Isabel was a very popular lady in their town, and in many towns too, as she was like a fairy tale character who came to life. Boys would often fall for her easily, and they would shamelessly throw themselves at her as she walked the halls of their school with her naturally curly brown hair, her fancy and expensive clothes, and a confidence that enhanced her elegance even more. Almost every man in their town wanted her to be their girlfriend. But despite Isabel's certain charisma in men, she did not want to have relationships with people. She might have been popular, but she was also distant when it came to men. It was because even though her life seemed so perfect with all her shiny jewelry and her perfect face, her family was actually in shatters. Her parents were then on the brink of getting divorced because her father being unfaithful to her mother. Since then, Isabel lost trust in men and believed that all men had the same intentions. She became independent, telling all of her friends that she wouldn't need any man to complete her. She shut her emotions down and was incapable of feeling love for other people for quite a long time. But that was until she met the man who would change her views in life and her entire personality. One day, while Isabel was walking across the street to get her morning coffee, she bumped into a man who just came from the coffee shop. The man's iced coffee spilled on Isabel, and she was furious. If there was anything Isabel cared so much about, it was her fashion. She yelled at the man for spilling coffee on her, but the man apologized to her right away and begged her not to make him pay for the dress because he was just getting that coffee for his boss. Isabel, for the first time in her life, felt a nerve twitch in her heart. She did not know if it was pity over the poor young man, but she just shut up and let it go. The man thanked her for letting it pass, and the man went immediately back to the coffee shop to replace the coffee he spilled. Isabel followed him and saw how he struggled to gather coins to pay for the replacement coffee. Feeling pity over the man once again, Isabel offered to pay for the second coffee the man bought. Money was nothing for her anyway, but she saw how the man was almost in tears when he realized he had to buy a second cup of coffee for his boss. "You don't have to buy it, miss," the man politely declined. But Isabel insisted, saying she was the one at fault anyway because she was looking at her phone while walking. The man smiled at her, and he let her buy his coffee. The two talked for a while before they parted ways. Even though it was just a brief encounter, Isabel hoped to meet the man again, and her wish was shortly granted. After a week, Isabel and the man accidentally met at the same coffee shop once again. Well, it was not a big of a coincidence, as it turned out. Their offices were both just in the same vicinity. The two finally had the chance to talk longer this time. They discussed each other's lives, hobbies, interests, and other things. They turned out to be very opposite in many things. Isabel was a wealthy woman, to start, and the man was just living paycheck to paycheck. Still, Their spark was undeniable. Since then, the two had become friends, and despite Isabel's hatred for men, she just couldn't resist the man's charm. Later on, their friendship blossomed into something more. They became lovers, and they loved being together. They were inseparable. It wasn't long when the man decided to pop the question. Isabel was beyond delighted when she was asked by the man to be his wife. However, there was also something at the back of her mind telling her to take a step back because she might not have any good future with the man. Yet Isabel still said yes, and soon enough, the lovers got married. The marriage was close to perfect at first. They traveled a lot, spent on things they wanted, and lived their best lives. After their honeymoon, they came back bearing a child. Isabel and her husband were very happy to welcome the newest member of their family, their first child. When their first child came, everything went differently. Isabel became distant and colder than she used to. She used to be loving and sweet to her husband, but when the baby came, she seemed to lose interest. One night, her husband tried to talk to her about it. "Is there anything bothering you? You just seem so distant," the man asked. "It's just that I make a load of money and you make nothing. I feel like I made a mistake for choosing you," Isabel replied quietly. This broke her husband's heart, but he couldn't say a word because he knew it was true. Instead, the husband decided at that moment that he would make every single day for her a happy one. Each day, the husband would give Isabel something he got along the way. They were just simple and small things, such as a single flower to put behind her ear, a piece of cheap jewelry, a pair of secondhand clothes or shoes, and anything he could get just to make his wife's day. But still, Isabel was never happy again. Her smiles at the start of their marriage never went back. Isabel noticed that her husband would always bring a suitcase with him wherever he went. To the office, to the grocery store, literally everywhere. She had always wanted to ask him about it, but she never got the time. She juggled motherhood and being present in her office. As her parents' business leader, work had always been her number one priority, and money was always her drive to work harder. So asking her husband about his suitcase was just a waste of time for her. After a few years, Isabel was running the business her parents left her, while her husband sat on the front porch chit-chatting with anyone he could because he had no one else to talk to. His daughter had her own family, and his wife was too busy managing her business. He felt all alone, and his wife did not care at all. A few years passed again. Their daughter is now married and is already having a baby of her own. She is building her own family, but Isabel's husband feels like he is losing his. Even before their granddaughter was born, the husband fell very ill. They took him to the hospital, but it was too late. For the first time in years, Isabel felt like she missed something. She felt like she regretted something she couldn't figure out. While cleaning her husband's belongings in their room, she saw the suitcase her husband always brought around. After 3 decades, she never asked him about it. Now she found it and gathered all her courage to open it. As she opened, she saw all the little things her husband gave her. The dried petals from the flowers he used to put behind her ears, the cheap jewelry she refused to wear, the shoes and clothes she returned to him, all of the small symbols of his love for her that she took for granted. She cried while holding the suitcase in her arms, realizing the time she wasted running after money. But where did her money take her now? She was all alone, too, just like how her husband felt in his last days. Isabel was filled with regret, but she knew there was nothing else she could do but cry. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed that video, and we'll see you in the next.